Okay, thank you for your time, everyone. Welcome back to the show. So in this video, we're talking about ladder bosses. Now, what the hell is a ladder boss? Ladder bosses are bosses that you kill. They drop materials for the next harder boss, and they call it the ladder. So you kill this guy, he gives you materials. It gives you materials to fight this guy, right? When you kill this guy, it gives you materials to fight the next guy, and you kind of like work your way up. It's a cool like series of fights that you get to go through. A ton of fun, such a good add to the game. And we're gonna go do one right now. Let's see how fast we can do it. So when you enter a certain ladder boss area, it's kind of like a mini dungeon. You kind of have to walk through it real quick. You might bump into some bad guys, be careful. So you kind of have to haul ass. We skipped all the enemies that time, that was great. And you'll enter this room, right? And most dungeons are kind of like this, where it's like you find the area, you run through it real quick, you find the room that the boss is in, and you'll see this little altar. And the altar takes a bunch of materials. You use the materials to summon the bad guy. There are super versions of the bosses. Everything in this game, we've talked about it before, has like a scaling difficulty. There are super versions of these bosses. So let's fight this guy. We'll summon him, and we'll fight him, and you'll get an idea what the boss ladder entails. So again, it's really straightforward in the sense of they are just boss fights. If you fought them before in the game, you'll kind of have an idea what's going on, but they're definitely beefed up. They're not just like regular bosses. As you fight them, they can get pretty hard. Some of them have special attacks that like really mess with your survivability. Some of them just hit super hard. They are not all the same. It is not the same mechanic at all. Not the same element you're going against. Be careful. You might do well against this guy, but one of the other bosses you might not do so hot. So just be careful, before you use those materials. Be ready. And if you have a bunch of the materials, test it. There's a bunch of these bosses, and you can find those materials pretty quick. I don't do them a lot, so I have a bunch of these materials. It's okay for me to like test with like a new build, and see where I land. So there we go. So you kill them, you get a bunch of rewards. This is one of the materials for one of the super bosses. So you kind of work your way up from there. Really satisfying, tons of fun. Tons of gear, such a good way to gear up. It's fucking crazy. If you have a buddy who can crush these and you have a bunch of materials, just to ask, like, dude, I'll pay if you run them. And a lot of people will be like, hell yeah. So, tons of fun. I love a good boss fight. One thing we didn't talk about, because it's not going on right now, I don't think, is there's something called world bosses. World bosses are these huge bosses that you fight. So fucking fun. They're really tough. But what's funny is that as you progress in the game, people get so freaking strong that these super world bosses become very easy. It kind of sucks the life out of them a little bit. So I won't, deep dive into that because it's not happening right now. There's not really much I can describe. But there's a handful of them. They're super fun. Honestly, they could give no fucking rewards. And I would still do them because it's so cool to see a boss that big. They're fucking huge. It's awesome. So that's kind of my boss video. There's a handful of these super bosses. They give you rewards to go fight other bosses. Rinse, repeat. And then there are like crazy versions of them if you really wanted to test yourself. Super cool, super fun. Who doesn't love a good boss fight?